Hey guys, it's Michael Kummer here. In today's video I want to talk about the Brava Smart Oven. The Brava is a multifunctional smart oven that can cook and sear and bake and dehydrate and air fry and a lot of other things. And so we got the Brava because we wanted to find out how it would work for us, a carnivorous family of 4 who follows a predominantly animal-based diet. And we wanted to find out what appliances the Brava oven can replace. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you which appliances it actually has replaced. And I'm also going to talk about the biggest drawback that we could identify in the Brava oven. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel and you click on the little alert button so you get notified when I publish more videos like this. I've had my eye on the Brava for a long time, ever since friends from the previous CrossFit box we worked out at got the Brava and raved about it. And so earlier this year, my wife and I attended the biohacking conference and we stumbled onto the Brava booth and we got super excited. We talked to the friendly folks at Brava and they were kind enough to send us the Brava Chef's Choice oven that comes with a bunch of accessories so we could figure out and find out how well the Brava would work for us and if it could indeed replace some of the other appliances that we have been cooking with, including a gas stove oven combo, an air fryer, a slow cooker, a crock pot, an infrared barbecue grill, a smoker, etc. Now, if you're new to Brava, if you don't know exactly what it is and how it works, let me give you a brief overview before we jump into the pros and cons, and I'll share more about how the oven has worked for us. Now, the Brava is a smart oven and it's a multifunctional oven. And what that means is the multifunctional part is pretty obvious. The Brava can do a lot of things. As I've mentioned, it can bake, it can cook, it can sear, it can rice cook, it can keep warm, it can dehydrate, it can slow cook. It can do a lot of things. So it has the potential to replace a host of traditional kitchen appliances like a stove, an oven, an air fryer, a microwave potentially a steam oven, and a grill, and many other things that you might have as individual appliances. And some of the unique features that set the Brava apart from other multifunctional ovens are the way it heats food. So the Brava has 6 individually controlled lamps that emit infrared heat, and it gets very hot. 900 degrees Fahrenheit is what you can use the Brava for to sear meat, for example. It's super hot. That rivals my infrared grill that we have on the porch. And so you have those 6 lamps. There are 3 on top and 3 on the bottom. And those 6 lamps create 3 individual cooking zones. So you have a zone on the front, 1 in the center, and 1 in the back. And the advantage of that is that you can actually cook 3 different foods or ingredients at different temperatures at the same time. So for example, if you put in the tray, you could have a steak on the back, maybe some zucchini in the middle and the center, and some acorn squash maybe on the front. And you can sear the steak at 900 degrees and then cook the veggies at a lower temperature to preserve, the few nutrients that are in plants. And all at the same time. So you put it in, you turn it on, you select one of the recipes, and it tells you when it's ready, and you've all 3 things cooked at the same time at different temperatures, and that significantly reduces the amount of time you have to spend in the kitchen. The other thing that's really cool, and that goes along with those 3 cooking zones, is that the lamps can direct the heat or the energy directly downwards or upwards, depending on if you use the top or the bottom lamps. And so that energy gets directed into the food without bleeding into the other zones. So in other words, if you cook your steak in the center at a certain temperature, then the food behind and in front of it doesn't get seared as well at the same temperature. The other advantage of those custom lamps is that they heat up incredibly quickly, so you don't have to preheat anything, and they cool down incredibly quickly. And that means there is less chance of overcooking, and it makes the entire cooking process very precise and repeatable. Now, the smart thing about the Brava is that you can connect it to Wi-Fi. It's optional, but if you do, you get weekly updated recipes. And as of this recording, the Brava features over 7,500 different recipes and presets that you can simply select via the touchscreen on the Brava and start cooking. And Those recipes contain anything from single ingredient, single step kind of meals up to multi-step meals for an entire family. And just to give you one example of what multi-step might mean, if I make an omelette in the Brava, I first, mix the eggs, put in the liquid eggs, put it into the Brava, turn it on, and the Brava starts frying my omelette to a certain doneness level, and then it stops, it pauses cooking. So I have a chance to add toppings or other ingredients or fillings onto the omelette and continue cooking. So that's a very simple two-step meal that the Brava allows me to do. But there are much more complex and complicated recipes if you want to follow them, including guided instructions. And it tells you exactly what accessory to use, the metal tray, the glass tray, we're gonna cover those in a little bit, and when to add another ingredient, etc. It's very straightforward, and it allows you to cook very fancy meals if you want to in a very short amount of time without you having to hover over different pans and making sure nothing burns and everything gets cooked to the right level of doneness. So incredibly sophisticated, incredibly smart, and very powerful and quick at the same time. As far as materials in the Brava are concerned, the Brava is a very well-built oven. The outside shell is made out of aerospace grade aluminum and the inside is stainless steel. It's very easy to maintain. Just wipe it down with a damp cloth. That's usually all it takes. The accessories you can get either in glass, or there are metal trays and pans and tins, etc. We're gonna talk about that in a bit. Very easy to clean, just rinse them down, use maybe a sponge, a non-abrasive sponge, and that's pretty much it. Super easy to use, and also very easy to use for kids if you want them to be included in the cooking process. Now, one of the things that I like most about the Brava is the touchscreen I mentioned before. The touchscreen can be used to select your cooking modes, to look at recipes, to use recipes, to do a lot of things, basically to operate the oven. In addition, there's also a mobile app that you can use to browse recipes, to send certain recipes directly to your Brava, so it's ready to start cooking. You can also get a live view of your food while it's cooking, either via the touchscreen on top, so that the Brava is a built-in camera, or you can use the mobile app to see how your food is cooking, so you don't have to open the lid and look what's going on inside. Very convenient and very smart. As I said, you can hook it up to Wi-Fi if you want to, so you get continuously updated and new recipes, firmware updates, etc. As far as accessories are concerned, the Brava comes with depending on the set that you buy or the accessories that you purchase, with a host of different accessories that you can use for any types of cooking, for slow cooking using the chef's pan, the muffin tin, the egg tray, etc. A ton of different accessories for different types of dishes that you might want to prepare. We got the chef's edition, as I've mentioned, so it comes with all of the accessories, and we have used pretty much all of them except for the loaf pan. Now let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the Brava and how the oven has worked out for us based on how we eat, based on what we eat, and based on how much we eat and how much food we typically prepare on a given day. One of the pros of the Brava clearly is that it can replace a lot of different appliances, because it can use so many different cooking modes, as I've mentioned before. It's also very easy to maintain. It's fun cooking with the Brava, and it's very easy and intuitive. Even if you're not a chef, even if you're not, traditionally enjoy spending a lot of time in the kitchen, using the Brava is a lot of fun. You pick the recipes, it tells you clearly what to do, what's next. Very easy to follow. Even kids can do it. I mean, our kids cook on the gas stove as well, so they had no issues whatsoever, just jumping in and using the Brava to fry their eggs, to reheat their food, etc. I also like how powerful and precise the Brava is. And precision might not be important for everyone, but I really like my eggs done in a certain way. And using the Brava, if I put in my eggs and I want them over medium, I get the same exact over medium eggs every single time I make them. There is no variation. There is no me having to watch and turning off the heat at a certain time. The Brava just does it for me, and the result is always perfect. The same goes with my omelette. My omelette looks exactly the same every single time I make it, and it's an absolute pleasure to see the results come out exactly the same way without me having to be involved or hovering over my food to make sure I get it off the heat when it's done. That's one of my favorite features of the Brava. It's set and forget. You let the oven do its thing, you can walk away, and it turns off when it's done basically. I also really like that the cookware included, especially the metal trays, use a non-toxic coating. We usually stay away from anything that's non-stick because many of the non-stick coatings, including Teflon, have chemicals that can leach into the food, especially at high heat. And so our typical cookware that we use in our stove are either cast iron skillets or stainless steel skillets. We don't use any traditional non-stick type of materials. Now the good news is the Brava uses a silica-based coating that is non-toxic, and they have the test reports to prove that. So if you want to find out more, you can request those test reports from Brava. But the coating is non-toxic, that's very important. And the only thing you should make sure is that you don't scratch the coating, because the core of the metal trays is aluminum, and so you don't want the aluminum to come into contact with your food. So don't scratch it, use non-abrasive sponges, etc. when you wash it. No metal utensils, etc. We use either a wooden spoons or silicone spoons or spatulas when we get the food off the trays. So let's talk about the cons a little bit before we go into how they relate to how we've been using the Brava and what it means for us. One of the downsides of the Brava is that you need a dedicated electrical circuit with a 20 amp breaker. It's a very powerful oven that draws 1800 watts. So plugging it into a regular outlet that you might have in the kitchen could lead to you blowing a fuse, or your lights start flickering. And in the beginning, we just plugged it into a regular outlet, to start testing, etc. And we were wondering, why are our lights flickering, when the Brava is on? And the reason is because it draws a lot of power. So you want to have a dedicated circuit for your Brava oven, much like you have a dedicated circuit for your electrical oven, if you have one. And so, that might take some prep work to get that in and make sure you have all the requirements, electrical requirements set up before you get your Brava. The second disadvantage is the size of the oven. It's a fairly well-sized oven, but it's still a countertop oven at the end of the day, and it doesn't have the room to cook as much food as you would have on a 4-burner gas grill or even your regular stove and oven. And for us, that has really been the main limitation as far as how we use the Brava. So, we have as I've mentioned before, a stove oven combo. We have an air fryer. We have a barbecue grill with 4-burner grill, and a couple of other appliances, a big crock pot or a slow cooker. And so in our case, the Brava couldn't really replace all of those appliances, even though it can do all of those things, but it cannot cook the same amount at a time. So in our case, the Brava replaced the air fryer only, because that was a smaller appliance and we used it predominantly for reheating food, for making maybe chicken wings, for cooking some stuff in parallel, if we wanted to get more stuff done, besides using the stove, and to maybe fry fermented sweet potato fries. That was pretty much it. And so all of that the Brava can do, and it can do way better. So the air fryer went out. We don't need that anymore. And we use the Brava for that. For everything else, the Brava is augmenting our existing appliances, but it's not replacing them. And the reason is we eat a lot of food, and in particular a lot of protein. And my wife and I typically only have 2 meals a day, or sometimes only 1 meal a day. And so the amount of food that we eat per meal is likely larger than for someone who has 3 meals a day and snacks in between. Just to give you one example, if we make patties on the grill or steaks, we cook several pounds of meat because we eat a lot among the 4 of us, but also very often whatever we don't eat, we put in the fridge, and so we can reheat it later. And the reason for that is we cook all of our meals from scratch. We don't buy any prepared stuff, we don't buy processed stuff, we prepare every meal from scratch. And so we spend a lot of time with food preparation. And mostly my wife, I help too, but it's mostly my wife who spends a lot of time in the kitchen. And so to reduce the time we have to spend on making or cooking food, we cook in bulk usually, and then we can heat something up. So if we make the steak or the patties with a rare center and we heat them up, they're still medium rare and good to go. There we found a limitation with the Brava simply because we couldn't cook the amount of food at the time. However, we have found that the Brava has been incredibly useful to prepare meals in parallel. So if we, for example, have breakfast and we all want to have eggs, different styles of eggs, I prefer an omelet typically, the kids do scrambled, my wife wants over medium. And so usually that meant cooking them in stages on our stove, and whoever cooked their eggs first typically ended up with cold eggs because that person had to wait until everyone else had their eggs done as well. Now with the Brava, we can do at least 2 sets of eggs in the oven and 2 on the stove, and we can all eat at the same time. So it's again a time saver for us, and it means everyone has warm food and someone doesn't end up with cold or lukewarm eggs because they had to wait for someone else to finish their eggs. And so that applied to every other scenario. For example, the other day, we made bone broth and we put in pounds and pounds of bones in our big crock pot to cook them. The amount of bones wouldn't have fit into the chef's pan of the Brava. However, at the same time, we made chicken soup using a slow cooking method. So we made the chicken soup in the Brava and we made the bone broth in our slow cooker. So again, it saved us time because we could do 2 things at the same time, but one couldn't necessarily replace the other, or the Brava couldn't replace our slow cooker simply because it's not big enough. And the same principle applies to all the other appliances. So the Brava for us is an incredibly nice option to make cooking quicker, to allow the kids to do certain things that might be a little bit iffy, with gas on the stove or the oven if it's very hot. But it also just speeds up the entire process because we can eat at the same time and we all have our food warm. So let's talk about pricing real quick. So the Brava, depending on the set you get, and by set I mean the oven and then some extra accessories, ranges somewhere between $1,200, I think $1,195 to $1,395, so to about $1,400, depending on how many accessories you want to get in the set. Now, depending on what set you buy, it's usually cheaper, or it is cheaper, you save some money by getting a set that has already certain accessories included versus buying only the bare oven, the starter set, and then adding the accessories manually. So you can save somewhere between $100 to $200 if you get a set. So depending on what you compare it to, the Brava oven isn't necessarily cheap. It has its price, but I also think it's worth it based on how many different appliances it can replace. So if you're an individual, if you're a couple, or even a small family, or even a family of 4 who doesn't eat the amount of food that we eat, the Brava oven is an excellent choice because it makes cooking easier, it makes it fun, and significantly more precise. There is less, you don't need to know as much about cooking and food preparation as you would normally do because the Brava does most of it for you. It has all the smarts and intelligence built in, and so you just have to follow the guided recipes, put in the right trays, put in the food, and the Brava oven does the rest for you. So where does it leave us? Well, I love the Brava. I've been using it almost exclusively over the past months or so to prepare my breakfast, prepare most of my food, and it's incredibly powerful, incredibly quick, and just fun to use. And no, it doesn't replace all of the appliances that I would have hoped for. I would have hoped for maybe to replace the slow cooker at least, but we've realized that just based on the amount of food that we usually cook, that's not gonna happen. But at the same time, now that we have the Brava, we can cook certain things in parallel. So we don't either have to wait for someone to finish their meal before we can all eat, or we can do broths and soups, etc. at the same time. We also can now do stuff that we couldn't do before very easily, like dehydrating mushrooms. We found a bunch of ringless honey mushrooms in our backyard, and even though we are not huge plant eaters, we are opportunistic, much like our Paleolithic ancestors. So if we find something that is edible, we take it and we cook it. So we dehydrated a bunch of mushrooms in the Brava, worked out really well. We even baked some paleo-friendly cakes with it. They came out perfectly, absolutely delicious. And so overall, the Brava oven is great. It's fun to use. It cooks perfectly. It just helps us to be a little bit more efficient and a little bit less messier in the kitchen. That was another, I think, big component for us. If we cook with a lot of fat, so having that all in the Brava instead of having the fat splatter around in the entire kitchen is a huge advantage to cut down on not only the cooking time overall but also the cleanup time. So for us, the Brava, thumbs up, great oven, especially if you're individual, couple, small family. For large families, there are some caveats like I've mentioned, but overall, it is definitely the Tesla of ovens, and you love using it if you want to give it a try. Now there is a lot more information about the Brava down in the description, like my blog post, so check that out to learn even more. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments what I could have done better. Until next time.